Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. Forgiveness. How do we forgive ourselves when we've messed up? The good news is we can, no matter what we've done. We can come to the place of self-forgiveness and letting go of the hurt we've caused others. Though it can be very hard, it is also very possible. Because sometimes we can really mess up. Recently, in the town that I live in, there is a woman who has 4 children of her own at home, and she went out drinking one night. Well, when she was coming home, she crashed her car into a car of 3 other teenagers who were here in Southern California for vacation, and she killed all 3 of them. She did survive, but the other 3 teenagers didn't. She was sentenced to 51 years in prison for her very bad choice that evening. Now, many of us can't relate to that type of crime, but have we ever done things where this could have happened? Have any of us ever made choices that could have gone very south? Or have we hurt people in other ways? One of the listeners to our podcast sent a message to me just the other day. He wrote, "Hello, Dr. Puff. I'm a long-time listener. In my early childhood, I experienced a lot of violence, both verbal and physical, from my parents and others, and I inflicted the same upon my younger sister. I witnessed my father being violent with my mother and others. I actually thought it was a normal part of life to be violent, mean, and judgmental. As I got older, and after I started listening to your podcast, I became aware that my behavior was extremely wrong. I have genuinely apologized to her many times and explained that my awareness wasn't there and I deeply regret my actions. Although we have been apart for more than 20 years and she's a professional with a wonderful family, she still has very negative thoughts about me and lashes out at me. She blames me for ruining her life. In your podcast, you always say to do whatever you can to reconcile and then forgive yourself, and I think that's all I can do now. Do you have any suggestions on how I can move forward? Jaden." So when we've hurt others, what do? I mean, if we were drinking and driving and we killed 3 other people's children, are we really allowed to forgive ourselves? Or if we hurt people that we love, for whatever reason, is there really any room for self-forgiveness? And the answer is yes, there is. It's very hard, but there is. Because the truth is, we all mess up. And it may be to varying degrees, but sometimes we just got lucky in the sense of what we did could have caused great damage to another person if we hadn't been lucky. And of course, there are degrees to what we can do in regards to hurting others. But forgiveness, whether we do something really awful or a minor offense, if we beat ourselves up, will have the same effects. What's going to ultimately matter, no matter what we've done, whether horrific or just bad, is that we need to work towards self-forgiveness. And we can. It is definitely possible. And it is also very healthy, and it will also be the path to happiness. Because if we don't forgive ourselves, a couple of things are going to happen. One is we're going to have to numb ourselves from our pain through the myriad of choices that life presents us, like addictions, like being busy, like so many different things we can do to numb ourselves. Or we may have moments when life is going well, but then we'll remember, oh, we're a dirty scoundrel. We did that deed in the past. And that self-loathing will take away any peace or happiness that comes. So let's talk about how do we forgive ourselves and, more importantly, move forward and have beautiful lives, which we all can. Well, the first thing we need to do is to acknowledge what we've done. Not deny it, not pretend it didn't happen. Look at it and say, okay, what did I do? Be honest about it. If we've hurt someone, start with that. Well, what did I do? How did I hurt them? Gather information so that we can find out. The gathering information might be getting into therapy. It might be journaling. It might be talking to people and say, wow, what did I actually do? And how did that make you feel? But honesty is the first thing we want to do. We want to really know, what did we do and what damage did it cause to others? When I was reading about that case where that woman killed 3 other people while she was drinking and driving, during the court proceedings, the parents of these teenagers who had died, they shared their story about what she had done to their lives and how she had hurt them and will continue to hurt them because they're never going to see their kids again in this life. She needed to hear that. That was the truth. We don't want to run. We don't want to hide from the truth. We want to squarely look at it. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to do anything about it. We may do nothing about it, but we do want to be honest about it. What happened? What damage did my behavior cause to others or myself? Then we want to ask ourselves, is there anything I can do to rectify this or to make amends for what's happened? I mean, think of Jaden's example. He talked to his sister. He apologized. Mind you, she didn't accept the apology, but he did apologize. In the same way with this woman who killed 3 other teenagers, she did profusely apologize to the family for the mistakes she made that night. Sometimes the person we may have hurt is past. They may not be here anymore. So what we can do is perhaps visit their gravesite or a place that's special to them and us, and go there and spend some time talking to them and apologizing for what we did. I have found this really helpful with my clients over the years and would highly recommend it. Now, sometimes it could be more harmful for us to talk to the other person that we hurt. We may know if we bring up what we did, it could be painful for them. And so it might be better not to say anything. But what I highly recommend is finding someone first who is kind and can be kind towards us, and tell them what we did. Secrets aren't very good for our soul, so find someone, again, who's very kind, and just share with them what happened. In a sense of getting it off our chest, talking about it, getting it out there, and having someone listen. They don't have to say anything, they don't have to do anything, but it is good to share our secrets, at least with one person, who I do want to emphasize is kind, because kindness comes with wisdom. As we get older, and hopefully we get wiser, we realize we all make mistakes, and that forgiveness is the path towards healing ourselves. So it is good to find someone to talk to. Now we can ask ourselves, is there anything I can do to make retribution to what I've done? Sometimes that may mean doing jail time for what we've done. Sometimes that may mean keeping distance from the other person because they don't want to talk to us. Sometimes that may mean making retributions financial. Sometimes it may mean helping others who are in the same situation of the person that we hurt and helping them instead because this other person doesn't want our help or we can't help them anymore. Then we take a deep breath because now comes the hard part. We have to let it go. We have to forgive ourselves for what we've done. And if we've done these steps, we've reached out, we've understood, we've tried to make amends as best we can, we may be doing time in prison for what we've done. But now that we know that we've done our best, we say, okay, I need to now live my life. Because here's a couple truths. One is we all make mistakes, and sometimes they're really big, or sometimes we're just very lucky that what we did didn't turn into something big. I think a lot of people who drink regularly have had an incident where they may have been drinking and driving at the same time, and they could have that night have killed another person. They didn't, but they could have. And I think when it comes to more active hurting other people, we need to be truthful, because when we hurt others, it's because we're hurting or people have hurt us first. We've done extensive interviews on people that have committed heinous crimes, and in all situations, they were just passing on the baton that was given to them. They were hurt, so now they hurt others. It doesn't make it right, but it helps to understand it. And if we take the time to understand our behavior, then we can let it go. We all make mistakes, and sometimes our mistakes have really big consequences. But what we want to do is say, okay, I made a mistake. What can I learn from it going forward? And two, I need to let it go. I need to forgive myself, because if there isn't self-forgiveness, there isn't going to be happiness for anyone, because all of us make mistakes. And part of healing is saying, it's time to let this go and live my life. It may mean I'm in prison, and I'm going to spend the next 51 years in prison because of my choice that I made. Then what we focus on is living well in prison. You may say, that's crazy, Dr. Puff, but I'm not. A friend of mine, she's a psychologist, and she specializes in working with people in prison. And one of the guys in prison who is on death row is one of the most enlightened people she's ever met, because he's done a whole lot of work on himself to improve. And though he probably someday will be executed, nonetheless, he has found deep peace and happiness and now shares it with people in his life, even though he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. We can make our lives work no matter what. We have to focus on that, making our lives well, not on what we did. It's time to bury that and let that go. We need to now move forward and focus on living well. Mistakes are just part of life. We make them, we make amends, and then we move forward. Period. Now our focus for all of us, no matter what we've done, is to live well one day at a time and focus on that. How do I make this a good day in this present moment throughout the day? Our focus is on the here and now, not on the past and what's happened. We let that go and we live in the present moment. It is time to forgive ourselves. I want to end this podcast with my own story. I think a lot of people think that, well, if your life's going well, then your life's just been easy. I've heard that many times. That is not true. Often the opposite is true. When I was 14 years old, I was raised in the Midwest. My parents were very happily married, and I had one sister. I did very well in school. I had friends, and everything seemed fine. I didn't have any psychological disorders. I just would watch shows about mountain men, and I felt really called to go live out in the mountains. And also, I would go to church, and I'd get so excited about my faith, but then I would come home, and it would dissipate, and I couldn't keep it. So those two things, at the time, caused me to say, I need to go find out what life is really all about. So I didn't tell anyone, but I saved $70, and I took with me a wind jacket, a Bible, and that's it. And I left home. And I didn't come back for 9 months later. No one knew where I was at all. They didn't know if I was kidnapped. They didn't know if I was dead. They had no idea where I was. I did come back 9 months later, a very different person. And you can imagine it's a very long story what happened during those 9 months. But the part I want to focus on is, when I came back, I had a lot to forgive myself for. It actually took me years to really understand the depth of the pain I caused my family, because they were just so glad when I came back. But I did cause them pain, and being a parent, I deeply know the impact I had on their lives. Yet, my life turned out well. I had a lot of healing to do, of course, but I healed. I had a lot of self-forgiveness to do, but I did. And my relationship with my family stayed strong, and we remained very close until my mother passed about 20 years ago. My father passed a few months ago. My father was one of my dearest friends. In life, we do hurt others. Part of it is to forgive ourselves and make our lives work now. Turn that which we have hurt others into something beautiful. I believe this podcast goes back to my leaving home at 14 years old. I needed to find what the deep truths of life were. Why are we here? That's why I left. And now I share it with you. I never meant to hurt anyone, but I did. So part of my life has been letting go and moving forward, and I have. We can have beautiful lives no matter what. But part of that journey towards our beautiful life is self-forgiveness. And one last thing, don't wait until the other person forgives you. That's their responsibility. Your responsibility is to forgive yourself and focus on living each day well. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. If you are finding these episodes helpful, I would love for you to share your experience with others. The easiest way for new people to listen to this podcast is just refer them to www.happinesspodcast.org. That's happinesspodcast.org. Or if you want to do more and leave a review, on that site you'll find a Yelp link, a Google Plus link, a testimonial link, or perhaps even the site you're listening to this podcast on. Often you can leave reviews there too. The reviews are an awesome way to encourage people to start listening to the Happiness Podcast. And until next time, accept what is, love what is. Do you ever wonder why some companies do so well, grow, and just seem to keep coming up with great ideas and keep expanding, while other companies are permeated with negativity, lawsuits, employee turnover, and just overall unhappiness in the workplace? Whichever corporate camp you find yourself in, or somewhere in between, the key to any company's ongoing success is to invest in and help their employees perform at their peak performance. There are very clear and specific things that people can do to perform well at work and in life in general. This is the focus of my podcast, and it's also the focus of my work. Being at the cutting edge of any market is sustained through investment in training employees how to perform well. But sustained growth and productivity requires specific psychological tools in order to continue to perform at peak levels. This is where I can help. I've been studying peak performance for over 30 years now, helping people all over the world. And there are very specific things that have to be maintained in order to sustain this level of performance. When companies invest in their employees are invested in them. Unfortunately, it's quite common for companies to be doing exceptionally well in the marketplace, but for unknown reasons, key employees make poor choices, leave the company, or start struggling and coping with stress-related illnesses. Companies that do well know their business really well, but human behavior works in mysterious ways unless you've been trained to understand the causes and cures of underperformance. If you're a forward-thinking company, perhaps it's time to think about giving your employees skills that may really help them perform well at work and throughout their lives. If you work for or manage a company, and you're ready to learn the skills in order to survive and thrive in any market, in any conditions, or in life in general, I'd love to help. These are the skills I've learned. These are the ones I'd love to bring to your company. True lasting success has to be seen from a broader perspective, not just monetary. And if you're ready to bring about these changes, that's where I can help. To learn more, go to www.successbeyondyourimaginationcom. That's successbeyondyourimaginationcom. And whether we're at the doorstep of retirement or have many years to go, may we always be growing and be developing our skills not only as successful employees, but as successful human beings.